In problem solving, while you're designing of the program, you need to follow some basic steps. In testing part, we can check whether the program works according to the requirements of the users. So syntax is a set of rules which should follow. So syntax error means the grammatical mistakes in a program. An error which occurs due to improper use of statements in a programming language. Hello everyone, I am Shweta, Computer Science Faculty, Vidhyaashram College, Mysuru. In my last session, I have discussed about flowchart. So what is flowchart? Flowchart means is a pictorial representation of an algorithm. So designing and flowchart, easily you can write the coding of a program. And also I have discussed about advantages and disadvantages of flowchart. So today I am going to discuss about the next topic. In problem solving, while you're designing of the program, you need to follow some basic steps. That is problem definition, develop an algorithm, and flowchart, coding, testing and debugging, documentation and maintenance. So these are the steps already I have discussed in my first session. Right? While designing a programming, you have to follow this step. So first we have to find the problem of the definition and algorithm, flowchart, coding, testing, debugging, and after that documentation and maintenance of the program. So next I am going to discuss about the topic called coding or programming. Very important concept. So what is programming? The process of writing a program instructions for an analyzed problem in a programming language. So while designing a programming language, we have to write the program instructions for an analyzed problem. Clear? And it is the process of translating the algorithm or flowchart into the syntax of a given purpose language. So after the designing of an algorithm and flowchart, you have to write the syntax to executing the code. Clear? Coding is the process of translating the algorithm or flowchart into the syntax of a given purpose language. Clear? So after the designing of an algorithm or flowchart, so you can write the syntax, that is called as coding. And you must convert each step of the algorithm into one or more statements in a programming language such as C, C++ and Java, etc. So we have many different kinds of programming languages, example C, C++ and Java. So in coding part, you must convert each step of the algorithm into one or more statements. Clear? So you have to minimize the steps in coding. So coding is a process of creating instructions of computer programming languages. So coding is used to program the websites, apps and other technologies have interact with every day. Clear? So coding is a process of creating instructions for computers programming. Clear? This is called as coding or programming. And next we have testing and debugging. So what is testing and debugging? Testing is a process of checking whether the program works according to the requirement of the users. So in testing part, we can check whether the program works according to the requirements of the users. And debugging is the process of identifying or correcting or removing the bugs. So in testing part, we can check whether the code is working or not. So in debugging part, we can identify or correcting or removing the bugs. Bugs means it is an error. I'll repeat. Testing means verifying correct behavior, and testing can be done at all stages of module. So this is about testing and debugging. And there are 4 types of errors: syntax errors, runtime errors, semantic errors, and logic errors. Very important question. Logic errors is called as bugs. Errors means bugs. In debugging process, so easily we can remove the errors. So how to identify the errors? There are 4 types of errors, that is syntax, runtime, semantic, and logical errors. So in testing and debugging part, so we can identify the errors and we can remove the errors. So next we'll understand about these errors. So first one we have syntax errors. So syntax is a set of rules which should follow while creating the statements of the program. So while designing the program, so we have to use some set of rules which followed while creating the statements of the program. Clear? So syntax means the grammatical mistakes in the statements of the program are called syntax. So here we can easily identify the error of this program, syntax error. You just observe this. We can easily identify the errors. In this step, semicolon is missing, right? In the example program, the 4th statement produces an syntax error as the missing semicolon. Clear? So this is called as syntax error, the grammatical mistakes in a statements. This is one example for syntax error. And next we have runtime error. Runtime error means during execution of a program, some errors may occur. So syntax error means the grammatical mistakes in a program, and runtime error means during execution of a program, some errors will occur. Such errors are called as runtime errors. Example, divide by 0. Example, n divide by 0. This is one runtime error. So in this example, it will show it is runtime error. If you give n by 0 or number by 0, so it will show runtime error. So next we have semantic error. An error which occurs due to improper use of statements in a programming language. Improper statements. If your statement is not proper, not in proper way, so it will show semantic error. Example, consider an expression C is equal to A plus B, indicating the values of the variable A and variable B are added and assigned to variable C, right? So, if we return A plus B is equal to C, then through the values of A and B are added, or if you return A plus B is equal to C, through the values of A and B are added, it cannot be assigned to variable C. Written to the right of sign, equal sign. So here we are using assignment operator. If you write this A plus B is equal to C, then it is semantic error. So here we are assigning A variable and B variable are added to the variable C. This is correct. If you write A plus B is equal to C, then it will show semantic error. So this statement, wrong statement, is called as semantic error. So next we have logical error. Logical error occurs when there are mistakes in the logic of the program. So if you missed any logic of the program or mathematical operations, so it will show logical error. Clear? And example, other errors, logical errors are not displayed while compiling because the compiler does not understand the logic of the program. So if you missed any logic in programming, so compiler does not understand the logic of the program. So example is to find the area of the circle. Find the area of the circle. The formula to be used is area is equal to pi r square, right? So I can write in place of pi 3.14 into r. But if we written area is equal to area is equal to 3.14 into 2 into R. So this is wrong. Logically it is wrong. Then the required output is not obtained even though the program is successfully executed. Sometimes programs will successfully executed, but the logic of the program is wrong. So you have to use the correct logic or mathematical operation for executing the program. So if you missed one logic, so you will not get the program perfectly. So this is called as logical error. So there are 4 types of errors, that is syntax error, semantic error, runtime error and logical error. So while designing the coding, please just concentrate on these types of errors called syntax, semantics, runtime and logical errors. So next topic we have documentation and maintenance. So what is documentation? Documentation is reference material which explain the use and maintenance of the program. So once you design or once you construct the program, so this documentation material which explains the use or maintenance of a program. So this is called as documentation. There are 2 types of documentation, that is internal documentation and external documentation. So what is internal documentation? In internal documentation, this is also known as technical documentation. Internal documentation is also called as technical documentation. It is meant for the programmer who may update the program code at later stages. So it is depends on the programmer. Clear? And it is done by defining meaningful variable names and including comments in a program code and presenting the program code clearly. So internal document is known as a technical documentation. It depends on meaningful variable names and comments in a program code and program code clearly. So this is called as internal documentation. And what is an external documentation? The program or application is supported with additional textual information about the application. So program or application, it depends on additional textual information is called as external documentation. So this external documentation is useful for the user, administrator or developer. So this external documentation is useful for the user, administrator or developer. This is called as documentation. There are 2 types of documentation, that is internal documentation and external documentation. So next we have maintenance. How to maintain the documents? Program maintenance means periodic review of the programs and the modifications based on users' requirements. So according to the user requirements, program will design the coding, right? So after designing of the code, so programmers has to modify the requirements. So after designing of the program, programmer has to maintain the programs according to the user requirements. So documentation plays an important role in program maintenance. So once you created a document, so programmer can easily maintain the program documents. It helps speedy and efficient maintenance. So this is called as documentation and maintenance. So next important concept is programming constructs. So while designing the programming, so we have to use these steps, right? How to construct the programs. Programming constructs is a statement in a program. So programming construct means while designing the program, we are using some statements, we are using some logics, variables and etc. So while designing a program, so we have to use this basic programming constructs. So there are 3 basic programming constructs, that is sequential, selection and iteration construct. So in program constructing, we have sequential construct, selection construct and iteration constructs. So in my next session, I will discuss about this in detail, sequential, selection and iteration constructs. Thank you.